So the Astronaut Academy, in doing my research for today, actually started as Astronaut Elementary and was a web comic that became a full-length graphic novel and now a soon-to-be-released second novel. Soon to be released, or is it? Technically now it is. Okay, you learn something new every day. As the book evolved, this school in space became more detailed and dramatic. Each character within his novels gets their own monologue and a moment in the spotlight, as he said in an interview a few years ago. He enjoys getting the perspective of the main character from others' points of view. As he once said, he would like to know what Neville Longbottom and Luna Lovegood are up to when they aren't around Harry Potter and what they really think about the most famous kid at school. I'm thrilled to introduce Dave today because the world of graphic novels has opened the door to many reluctant readers. I have seen many children who have previously said, "I don't like to read," become lost in a graphic novel and not be able to put it down. These professed non-readers have been converted, a teacher's greatest hope. While some parents have said it doesn't offer the same as a chapter book, I wholeheartedly disagree. Graphic novels engage children not only with the dialogue, but with the pictures and force students to make connections. There's so much to infer from the pictures and what isn't shown. In addition, children truly understand tone of voice, emphasis on words or phrases, and character actions. Bottom line, graphic novels are a wonderful option, and I am so glad that there are those who have created this genre for children and young adults. Now for a little bit about Dave Roman. He graduated from the School of Visual Arts and worked as a comics editor for the groundbreaking Nickelodeon Magazine from 1998 to 2009, and is still with Nickelodeon Magazine, correct? Or not really? Okay. He has authored several graphic novels, including 2 on the New York Times bestselling list, X-Men Misfits and the Last Airbender Zuko story. He lives in Astoria, New York, fellow New Yorker here, and with his fellow comic artist and wife, Raina Telgemeier. How'd I do? Did I say it right? All right. Please welcome Dave Roman.
Thank you so much. Do you guys know who Jim Henson is? Do you guys all know who Jim Henson is? This is like crazy for me to be on the Jim Henson stage because I grew up loving Jim Henson and the Muppets. So I have to do a Kermit, yay! I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about my graphic novels, including Astronaut Academy, Zero Gravity, and I'm going to try to do some drawing as well. We'll see if we can figure it out. I'm going to talk to you real quick. So these are some of the books that I've done. I've brought pictures because they're all graphic novels, and to talk about graphic novels without pictures is just like pointless. So I did this book, Teen Boat, with my best friend, John. We've been drawing comics together since we were in high school, and this is the book that we did together, Teen Boat. I wrote it, he drew it, and then I've done short stories for books like Nursery Rhyme Comics and the Flight anthologies. Those were like short stories, like 2 pages, 5 pages. And Astronaut Academy is the first full-length graphic novels that I've ever done, that I wrote them, I drew them, I did the lettering, I colored them, except they're in black and white, but they're still sort of colored. Did the whole thing myself, so I'm super excited about these books because I've been drawing comics since I was a little kid. How many of you guys like to draw? A few of you, you're sort of on the fence about it. Did you used to like to draw? Did you ever you never picked up a pen and you were like, this is fun. He likes it. You kind of like it. Most people kind of like to draw a little bit when they're young. And for some reason, you like to draw, right? It's fun, right? So me and my sister used to draw together. My cousins used to draw. All my friends used to draw. But for some reason, I'm the only one who still draws out of all of us. We all were super talented kids who loved to draw. And somehow it got beaten out of us. Somehow somebody said, drawing's not as much fun as it used to be, or they got interested in other things. I still love to draw. I never stopped. I started drawing when I was a kid, and I'm still doing it, and luckily no one stopped me. And mostly people have been supportive. So I grew up loving comic strips. That was the first comics that I ever read. Calvin and Hobbes, Foxtrot. I really liked funny comics that were in the newspaper. And I really like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Who here likes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Right, some TMNT fans here. So when I was a kid, this is what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles looked like as a cartoon. You guys have the show on Nickelodeon now, which is really awesome. There have been movies, toys, video games, but it all started with a comic book. 2 guys, 2 friends in Massachusetts decided, we want to make our own comic book. And they came up with this really crazy idea about Ninja Turtles, which, if you think about it, is a really crazy idea. And they were like, let's make our own comic. And rather than trying to find somebody to publish it, they self-published it. That means they took their own money and said, let's make our own books. And from doing that, they went on to have cartoon shows, toys, movies, all that amazing stuff, just because they decided, hey, let's take this crazy idea and make our own book. So I was super inspired by that. And as a kid, I started making my own comic books. This is a comic book that I made when I was in middle school. It was just about, so I grew up in New York, but I had family in California. So I imagined what it would be like to live in California. And for some reason, I imagined that in California, we would have access to time machines, like in Back to the Future, and go on time-traveling adventures. Me and my cousins would travel the world in a DeLorean time-traveling machine, because that's what you do when you live in California. And we took this, so I took this comic and I sold it in the school store. I probably sold it for like 50 cents or $1, and kids at school would buy it from me. So when people ask, like, you know, why did you want to be an author? It was because I was making books and I was making money at it, so why would I want to stop? I'll just keep doing that. But by the time I graduated high school, I had to figure out, you know, okay, now we got to get serious. And I found out there were lots of art colleges, but there's one art college called the School of Visual Arts. And that's in New York City. And at the time, it was one of the only schools that has a comic book major. That means your major, your degree says that you are a master at comic books, which I was like, yes, that is what I want to do. And the teachers at the school worked on Batman and Daredevil and superheroes that I was familiar with. So I was like, yes, I want to be taught by those guys. And while I was there, I met some other students that were really creative. And my friend John, who I met while I was in high school, we decided to do this book together called Jax Epoch and the Quick and Forbidden. And we were self-publishing it, just like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guys. Only we did not get famous from it. But we still really had a lot of fun, and we learned a lot. And I was writing scripts. I keep really sketchy notebooks. One of the authors that was up here was showing you his notebook. Every crazy idea I came up with, I'd write it in a notebook, and then I would turn it into a script, which was like, you know, basically making it so that somebody else could read it and understand what it said. And then from that, it would turn into a comic. So I would come up with a crazy idea, like, what if there was a dragon who flew over New York City, and this girl has to, like, jump on the dragon and ride on it, and my friend John would do the artwork. And that was super cool, because I was a good artist, but I thought he was an even better artist. And he could draw dragons and skyscrapers, and it was like really a great collaboration. And that's when I started realizing that, you know, you don't have to do it just by yourself. You can team up with other people, and if there's somebody who's like really good at something, it's good to like join forces and become an even better team. So that's what John and I did. And we would go to comic conventions all over the world. They're basically like these book festivals, but they're just about comics, and we would meet other cartoonists and learn from them and ask them questions. And that's how I ended up getting a job at Nickelodeon and writing for books like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it was the best job in the world. But even though I had this really great job, I was still always doodling. I was always drawing in my sketchbooks. I'd be in a meeting, and I'd be like, oh, this meeting's boring. I'm going to draw. So I always was drawing these little characters, and I started thinking about them, and I started giving them personalities, and they became these kids. And I knew that they were kids, and I knew what their sort of personalities were, but I didn't know what their lives were like. And that's how I started coming up with the stories. I started thinking about what would life be like for these kids. And I started coming up with this futuristic school. And it's a space station school in the future. And part of the fun of making stuff up is you can do whatever you want. So I started thinking about all the crazy teachers they might have in the future, like bunnies and magical elves and Spanish-speaking panda bears. Senor Panda. And in the future, I decided that kids can have multiple hearts. And that is totally based on playing lots of video games growing up. If you play games, this is the old school Legend of Zelda. You guys have a cooler Legend of Zelda now, but this is what it looked like when I was a kid. But there was a thing called a life meter. And as long as you have multiple hearts, you can survive anything happening to you. You could have a rock fall on you, and as long as you got more than one heart, you'll be okay. So in my comic, the same thing. People collect hearts, and as long as they've got multiple hearts, they can play dangerous sports or do all sorts of crazy stuff. And I was also inspired by Japanese comics like Astro Boy and various manga, and I blend all my influences together. Everybody has ideas. They see a lot of movies, read a lot of books, and everybody blends their ideas together and makes their own stories. And like it was mentioned, Astronaut Academy started as a webcomic. That means that I would put it on my website and let people read it for free. I wasn't trying to make money at it. I was just trying to put it on the website just to see what would happen. And that's how a publisher discovered my ideas and decided, let's make a book. And we got to make this super shiny, metallic, futuristic book, which I'm super excited about. So I draw everything by hand. That's a script. That's what a script looks like for when I do my own comic. It's just doodles and thumbnails. And then I draw with a pencil on a much larger piece of paper. And then I'll go over it with ink to make it nice and dark. And I use the same kind of brush that Bill Watterson, who created Calvin and Hobbes, and Jeff Smith, who does the Bone comics, does. Those guys are my heroes. So I learned what they used and tried to improve my art based on that. So that's just the same page getting darker. And then eventually it does get scanned into a computer. And that's how I get to send it to my publisher so that they can turn it into a book. So I'm just going to give you guys a real quick idea about being an author. You know, I just mentioned how I became an author, but there's really no one way to become an author. There's various paths, but there's certain advice that I give everybody to help inspire people to be an author. And the best way to become super creative is to read a lot. The more books you read, the more your mind's going to expand, and you're going to be able to come up with more interesting ideas and make cooler books. And to get better at it, you just have to make a bunch of stuff. I showed you that I started when I was a kid. The analogy that I use is if you walk into a gym and try to pick up 1,000-pound weights, first try, you'll never be able to do it. You got to start small. So everybody's got to start making stuff, you know, that is not going to be that good. And you're going to make more stuff, and then it's going to get better, and that's how you'll become a professional. And then you got to share it with everybody. You can't hide your stuff. You got to show your friends, show your teachers, show your parents, and make connections with other creative people, and then support each other and build a community, because that's the key to success, is having a really great supportive community behind you. All right, and then finally, ask lots of questions. That's how I learned what tools the artists used that I liked, was I'd ask them, what do you guys draw with? And I'd learn from that. So hopefully you guys will have some questions for me, but first, I'm going to do some drawing. Yay! And I'm going to try to keep track of time, because it's 12:27, and what? Oh, and she's going to hold up a sign for me. Okay, so I'm going to try to do something really, 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 really fast. Let's make a story really, really fast. Who wants to help me? Who's somebody? Some of you guys raised your hands. You like to draw. You like to draw? All right, come on. You're going to help me. We're going to make a comic really fast. This is going to be like the fastest comic ever. I'm going to put a line up here for the title, and it's going to be 4 panels. Nice and simple. All right. Do you want to draw the first panel or the second panel? We're going to collaborate. We're going to be a team here. What's your name?
William.
William's going to be my partner. We're going to collaborate on a comic together. Do you want to do the first? You want to do the second panel? Okay, he's going to do the second panel. Now, the reason why I break this up into 4 panels. Ooh. Does anybody know what that creaking noise is? Whoa, ghosts. Okay. Great. So we're going to break it up into 4 panels. The setup, the conflict. Oh, is that on? Is that the?
Give you this.
You want to use that one?
The wireless is
There
active.
you go. No problem. Hello. Can you hear me? Technical difficulties, guys. This is what it's like to be an author. All right. We're working. We got technology on our side. So we're going to do a 4-panel comic. First panel, the setup to the story. We introduce the characters. Panel 2, the conflict. That's when things start getting interesting. Opposing forces. Panel 3, the twist. Something that we didn't see coming. A surprise in the story. And then finally, a resolution. We got to wrap this up. We only have 1 page to do this story. All right, I need a title for a story. Something that nobody has ever seen before. A brand new title for a story. Who has a title for a story? Can't be something that you've seen on TV or read in a book. What is an original title for a story? Somebody give me a title. Shout it out. Something about ribs, maybe. Anybody? Does anybody have a title? Come on. Come on, a kid. Let's have a kid with a title.
The Mystery of the Cave.
The Mystery of the Cave. I like this. That's a spooky title. Lots of intrigue and mystery. Okay, so we need a main character for our story to go into this cave. Should it be an adult or a kid? A kid. All right. What should the kid look like? Should it be a boy or a girl? A girl. I heard girl. The girls came quick. The girls came fast. You guys got to get faster at this. We've got a girl character. Maybe we'll do two characters, a girl and a boy. All right. So we're going to have a girl and a boy entering a cave. We'll draw the cave. How are we going to draw a cave? We'll draw some rocky formations, and we'll make it all sort of black on the inside. Guys, normally I do not draw standing up, so forgive me if this is not the best cave that you've ever seen. And usually I draw on paper, so it may not be perfect, but we're drawing two kids entering the cave. We're going to keep these kids simple because we only have a few minutes to draw this. All right, how are we going to draw these kids? We've got two kids. We're going to make them sort of stick figures. But what can we do to make them look like a boy and a girl? What should the boy have so that we know that it's a boy? I heard a sword. Every good boy needs a sword. All right. What should the girl have so that we know that it's a girl? What do you think?
A blouse.
A blouse. Okay, so we'll give her... We're going to give her a longer blouse. So we know it's a blouse. What else? So this guy's got... The girl needs something cool, too. The guy has a sword. What can the girl have? A flashlight. That's pretty good. That's helpful to have so that we know.
One.
I heard a magic wand. All right, so we're going to give him a magic wand. It's going to have a little star on it, so we know it's a magic wand. All right, so we've got our two kids' characters. You could draw those characters, right? They're pretty simple. We're keeping things simple here, guys, so that anybody can draw, because we can all draw. I know we can all do this. All right, so panel 2, we need to introduce the conflict. Something scary, a bad guy maybe, something that's going to try to get in their way. What would be a good conflict? You know, you don't even need help. But let's see if we get some good suggestions in there. A polka-dotted dragon. What do you think about that? What was your idea?
I was thinking about an alligator hibernating that wakes up when they enter the cave.
An alligator hibernating. I like that. Can you draw an alligator? Okay, you got a green marker. That's a good start to draw an alligator. All right, so he's going to draw the alligator. He's got the spiky top of the alligator. You don't want to touch that part because it's sharp. I think there is an eraser thing, and yet we're using our fingers because we're getting down and dirty in this comic. You know, there's a train passing by here. This is actually making me feel like home because I live in New York City, and I actually live under the Amtrak train that passes through New York City. So anytime I'm doing like an important phone call or Skyping with a school or something, there's always trains passing by. So I feel just like home. All right, so you got the alligator. Is that the cave? Is that the top part of the cave? All right, so I'll go in with the black and add some stalagmites or whatever these things are called. I always forget. Right, stalagmites are on the ground, so we'll do those over there. All right, so we've got the cave, we've got the dragon, and it just woke up. So how do we know that it just woke up? Maybe it can say something. What should the alligator be saying? Grrr. Grrr. All right, so we're going to give it a grrr. I'm going to give it a shaky balloon so you know it's angry. And we'll draw the kids in the foreground here, the backs. They just came into the scene. They did not realize that they are going to wake up a dragon, an alligator. You know, dragons and alligators are cousins, so. All right, so we've got the setup. The two kids enter the cave. We've got the conflict. They've encountered an alligator that just woke up from its nap, and it's angry. Now we need a twist. Something that we did not see coming. It can't be you because we're the writers. We kind of know where this is going. We know how we would go this story. But the challenge is we need a twist from the audience. Somebody's got to give us a twist. Something that we didn't see coming. Somebody who wants to add a crazy idea to this story. Let's get some ideas here, and we'll choose our favorites.
A giant monster.
A giant monster? Well, we've already got an alligator. A giant monster might be too crazy, but that might, well, maybe. We're going to hold on to that. What do you think?
The girl uses the wand to tie the alligator up.
Okay, so the girl uses the wand to tie the alligator up. That's pretty good. That's pretty logical, actually. I want something a little bit strange, something I didn't think was going to happen. Because you know when you guys are reading a story and you're reading the book and you're like, all right, I see where this is going. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa! I did not see that coming. Oh my goodness. And that's your favorite kind of book because you're like surprised. So we want a really big surprise, something that we couldn't have seen coming.
The girl runs over to the alligator because she loves alligators and wants to pet it.
So she wants to pet it?
Yes.
Okay, that I would not see coming. I would not, if I saw an alligator, I would either probably run or I would try to tie it up or something like that. But this girl is not afraid of the alligator. She's going to pet the alligator. All right. All right, so you can draw the alligator and I'll draw the girl petting the alligator. We've got an alligator expert up here. Have you ever seen an alligator in real life?
Yes.
Yes? Where did you see it?
Well, I saw
A skeleton of it. Okay. Phew. And on TV. Okay, but not like in your backyard or something like that. See, because I'm from New York. We don't have any alligators in New York, but further south you get, alligators start showing up in your backyards. All right, he's going to tie his shoes, which is the most important part of drawing on a stage, is to make sure your shoes are tied, because we do not want to knock anything down. All right, so is it ready for me to draw the girl on there? All right, I'm going to draw the girl petting the alligator. She's happy about it. I'm going to give a little pat sound effect and some little motion lines. She's kneeling down, and maybe we'll draw the boy over here. And he's like, what are you doing? He cannot believe that this girl is petting an alligator. And you got an idea for the ending?
conclusion. For the conclusion, the alligator becomes the girl's bodyguard.
The alligator becomes the girl's bodyguard. All right, I like that. And the world explodes. The alligator sails off into the. Okay, all right, I like this. This is crazy, guys. All right, so we're gonna draw a giant explosion over here in the background. Boom. That is the world exploding. But luckily, all right, so you want to draw the alligator like heading off this way, and then we'll draw them riding on it or something like that. Make it what? He wants you to shoot rainbow. He wants rainbows to shoot out of its butt. That might be too much. We only have a couple of colors here. We can't handle an entire rainbow. But guys, there is nothing stopping you from drawing that comic yourself. I would love to see that comic. All right, so we've got the alligator flying off. All right. I'm going to make them sort of like they're surfing on this alligator. And the blouse, yep. And the shirt and the sword. You want to draw the sword and the wand for me? All right. That's pretty good. All right, we need them to be saying something so that we know that they're safe. What can these kids be saying? Okay, we got woo. We survived explosion of the entire world. All right, and he's drawing wings on the alligator. So the alligator did turn into a dragon, technically, right? No, not exactly, but we're going to pretend. I told you they're cousins. I'm going to draw some clouds here in the sky so that we know. And then we got to put a big "The End." And I need you to sign that comic because you are the co-author of this comic. You guys saw it first, the debut of The Mystery of the Cave by Dave Roman and William R. Booley. Round of applause for William. Guys, give me a high five. I need a high five. This is the artist. We're new collaborators. Look for our new book series. Thank you so much for that. How much time do we have? It's 12:42. Okay, so that was a great comic. You guys want to take pictures of that afterwards so you guys remember that you saw it here first. This is going to be a famous movie in the future and comic. It all started right here in Gaithersburg Book Festival. All right. Thank you guys so much. So I've got some time for some questions. If anybody has any questions for me as an author, as a cartoonist, as someone who likes to draw, my collaborator has the first question. What do you think?
What's your next book in the Astronaut Academy?
What's my next book in Astronaut Academy? Well, that's actually a great question. So Astronaut Academy literally just came out last week. So it's brand new. I'm super excited about it. I did a book with a silver cover. I did a book with a gold cover. Now I got to figure out if I do a third book. What is it going to be? Bronze is a good thing. Copper. But the trick is that making them not look too much like the gold. So it's going to be tricky. I'm going to have to figure this out. I've got some ideas for a third book, but I haven't started on it yet. The reason being is doing this book took 2 years. Super tiring. So I wanted to switch gear. I'm working on a brand new book, totally new story, new characters. And then when I'm done with that, maybe I'll jump back and do a third Astronaut Academy. But we'll see. We'll see. Train is passing. Where are they going, guys? I don't know. Do you guys know? South Dakota. I don't know what's in South Dakota. Hope, but not books. All right, we have another question. What do you have written on your arm? Important? Okay. It's a memory thing. You know, I used to write all my ideas on my hands. And people used to be like, what is on your hands? I'm like, stories.
Are your books on sale here?
My books are on sale here. There's a table called Politics and Prose. They've got my books. I think they have both Astronaut Academies, maybe even Teen Boat. I'm not sure about that. And if you pick up a copy, I'll draw on them for you. Make them extra special. He's already got the books. He's ahead of the game. We know this. She's got one already, too. We're going to sign those. What is your question? What different books have I done? Well, I've done a bunch of different books. I did the Teen Boat book, which is about a kid who can transform into a yacht. And he gets hijacked by pirates. And he falls in love with a gondola on a class trip to Venice. It's a very serious book. You can tell how serious this book is. No, it's another crazy book. I like to do really funny, silly books. You saw the kind of stories that we make up here. That's the kind of books that I do. Teen Boat is just as crazy as that. But I've also done books for Nickelodeon, including a book called Zuko Story, which is based on, if you guys ever saw The Last Airbender, it's about Zuko, Prince of the Fire Nation. And I did a book called X-Men Misfits, which is about the X-Men, but totally different from any X-Men you've ever seen. And then I did those books. I did a book called Explorer the Mystery Boxes, and that's a short story collection. And I wrote it, and my wife, who's also a cartoonist, she drew it. So a lot of different books out there. Yes, you with the Angry Birds shirt. The first comic book that I ever made when I was a little kid. Well, the first comic book that I ever made when I was a kid was Transformers. Now, I love Transformers too. And you love Transformers, but I didn't create those characters, but I drew them anyway. I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I love the Transformers. I'm going to draw Transformers. And another character that I really loved, and this is how many times I drew him. So when you first draw something, things are really hard to draw for the first time. But if you draw something a lot, it becomes really easy to draw. So I used to copy all my favorite characters. And my favorite character to draw was like this. You guys might already be able to figure it out pretty quick. So that's Bart Simpson. You guys all know Bart Simpson. My favorite character. No, it's Garfield the cat. So I loved Garfield the cat. So I started drawing my own Garfield comics. I started drawing my own Transformers comics. I would draw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So my first comics were based on my favorite characters, and I would just make up my own stories with those characters. But then eventually, I decided to make my own character, and I made a cave cat that looked sort of like Garfield. And then I made a character named Rad Brad, and he was a kid superhero. And I realized much later on that he basically looked like Spaceman Spiff, who is a character from Calvin and Hobbes. So all of my earliest characters were really just copies of other characters. But that was how I learned to draw, and eventually I grew up and started making my own characters. But even my own characters are really based off characters that I loved when I was a kid. So I'm always just taking my influences and turning them into new things. And I think that's what a lot of artists do. All right, did anybody have another question? Yes.
Are you planning to make a sequel to Teen Boat? Because I read it and I really like it.
All right, she liked Teen Boat. Thank you so much for being a fan of Teen Boat. I appreciate that. So my friend John draws Teen Boat. I write it. You know, we thought we were just going to put all our ideas in that book. We were like, this is going to be every idea that we could ever come up with about a kid who can transform into a boat. Because how many adventures can a kid transforming into a boat go on? And we did all these crazy adventures, and we're like, that's it. And then somebody said, you never explain how he became Teen Boat. How did he become a boat? You never explained it. And we were like, you're right. So we started writing a whole new book about where Teen Boat comes from, who his father is, where do boats come from. We don't know where boats come from. Nobody knows. It's mysterious. So we've discovered that there is a secret world below the sea called Boatlantis, and that is where boats come from. So John and I are working on that book right now. It's going to take us about 1.5 years to draw it, but it'll be worth it because it's going to be the most epic thing. Do you guys know what a narwhal is? Have any of you guys ever seen a narwhal? A narwhal is like a whale that has a giant, it's technically a tooth. It's actually a tooth, but it looks like a unicorn horn. So we're going to have narwhals that are the guardians of Boatlantis, and we're going to have boats that live under the water, and we're going to have Teen Boat's dad. I'm going to spoil it for you guys. He's a submarine. It's crazy. So that's what I do for a living, is make up the craziest ideas you've ever heard of. Who else has a question?
Is his dad like human and like?
Don't think about it too hard, guys, because scientifically it's not possible. Some people say it's disturbing, but it is the love story between a human and a boat. Basically, his mom was in the Navy. She fell in love with a submarine. It was love at first sight. That's all you need to know, guys. It's a book for kids. And it's fun. Teen Boat. It's a real thing, guys. It's a real thing. It started out as a joke between me and my friend John. We were just joking around, thinking about silly ideas. And that's what's great about being a writer, is that you can take something that just seems silly, it's a joke, it's just funny, and then the next thing you know, you're making a real book, and people are like asking you about the sequel. It's pretty cool. Did you have a question? My wife and I, so my wife is Raina Telgemeier. She is also a graphic novelist. A lot of times we get to travel together. She's in Maine at a different book festival right now, talking about her book, Smile and Drama. And I'm here talking about Astronaut Academy. And tonight I'm going to get on a plane, and I'm going to fly up to Maine, and we're going to do some stuff together tomorrow. We have done short stories together. So the book Explorer, the Mystery Boxes, we did a story in there together. There's another book coming out called Explorer, the Lost Islands. It's a sequel. And it's all stories about people trapped on lost islands. And I wrote that and she drew it. And even times when we're not technically doing books together, we still help each other out. She helped me a lot on Astronaut Academy. And I'm secretly writing things in her. Like, she didn't know how drama was going to end. I wrote the whole ending to drama. Don't spoil. Yes. Oh, were my parents supportive of my career? My parents were both supportive and not as supportive as they could have been at the same time. So my parents were like, yay, drawing keeps you quiet. We love this. Keep drawing. But my parents threw all my drawings away. So all my comics that I drew as a kid were thrown away. And it wasn't until I was like maybe like 13 that I realized that I could be like, no, don't throw these away. I'm going to keep them. And I started like, hiding my comics and keeping them so that she wouldn't throw them away. But when I said that I wanted to go to art school, they were like, yeah, of course you're going to go to art school. There was no question of it. So, but yes and no. I think secretly my parents wish I was a lawyer, but they like that I'm happy and that I get to make comics because they kind of knew that it was going to just because I'm pretty consistent. I've been doing it since I was a kid, so they're pretty supportive in that way. Oh, it's called Astronaut Academy. Yeah, so Astronaut Academy. It's about a lot of things, but it's the future. Kids have multiple hearts, and in the second book, the twist is that there's a monster that wants to eat people's hearts. So kids have to protect their hearts from this monster who wants to steal them. But the trick is, so like the way you give a heart is if you fall in love with someone, you want to give them one of your hearts, right? And the monster disguises itself as the object of your affection. So it's a very tricky monster. All right. You've got another question.
Where did the monster come from?
Where did the monster come from? From space. From the deeps of space. I don't know. I don't know. That's what I like. I like to come up with stories. Sometimes there's a mystery to them, and you don't know where that monster came from. And maybe that's why I need to do a third book, is so that I can explain where that monster came from. What parts did my wife do in Astronaut Academy? She usually, anytime there was like a really complicated background, I would draw it, and then she would be like, here's how you fix it. And then I would draw over her drawing. Because she's really good. I've got 10 minutes left. She's really good at complicated scenes, where I'm really good at like drawing simpler scenes. So if there's something like really detailed, and it's got a lot of characters in it, she probably helped me with that in some way. And if there's a crazy story plot in her books, I'm usually good at helping her with the complicated story parts. So, that's where, again, it's collaboration. It's good to team up and hang out with people who are super talented because you guys can help each other. And there's nothing wrong with that because not everybody can do everything themselves. All right, is there a final question? All right, what's your question?
So, I also read the first book of Astronaut Academy, so you know how in the book there's... Oh, wait, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's this...
We're all spoilers here.
So there's this team that the school's against that's like all raccoons and Fireball. How do you come up with the raccoons?
So in the comic, they play a sport called Fireball. And because they played against different planets, in the future, I decided that there would be different planets where... So on Earth, the humans are the dominant species, right? And there's animals that haven't evolved as high as humans. But what if there were other planets where different animals evolved to the top and humans didn't evolve? So on these planets, there could be talking bunnies, there can be panda bears, all different types of animals. And the rival school is these raccoons. And a lot of the ideas from Astronaut Academy come from Japanese anime and manga. And there's a movie called Pom Poko that is about these raccoon dogs that transform. And I really like that movie, so I decided to make my own raccoon dog characters in Astronaut Academy. All right, what is your question?
Where did you come up with the part about Ninja Bum?
The Ninja Bunny. Okay, so that's actually... Guys, you got to be careful when you guys help me with these ideas because sometimes, these ideas lead to one thing and another idea leads to another thing. I went to a school, and I have a character in this book called Doug Hero. And Doug Hero, so he's an astronaut who never wants to take his spacesuit off. And the reason why is because he's going to school in outer space. You never know when things are going to happen. The zero gravity could stop. You could get ejected out the air, the airlock, and be floating in space. So he's always prepared. He always has his spacesuit on. But because I draw characters so simple, Doug Hero is just an oval with another little oval and dots for eyes. And so for me, that's an astronaut suit. That's what the helmet looks like. But a kid saw that and said, "Who's the ninja?" And I started thinking about space ninjas. And I decided that Doug Hero is also a space ninja. So in the second book, there's a character who really wants to be a hero, and she becomes an apprentice to the space ninja. So she becomes a ninja bunny, and she looks like this. And again, going back to my, inspiration and influences. So how do I draw a bunny who's a ninja? I give her a mask that is not unlike a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle mask. So again, it keeps kind of going in circles. You learn to draw from reading your favorite comics, and then they inspire you. And that's true for all artists. All right, so that's the Space Ninja and the Space Ninja Bunny. Those are my two characters. Guys, thank you so much for having me here. I hope some of you guys that like to draw are inspired to keep drawing. And those of you who don't like to draw know that you don't have to be a professional artist to draw. You can still just draw for fun. It is just good times here drawing. You can draw stick figures and still have a lot of fun. There's no reason not to be creative in your spare time. So thank you guys so much. I will be signing copies of the books over at Politics and Prose. And I hope you guys see some other great authors and have a great time here. Thanks again.